up, Badlands. Explain those Badlands. That's a hell of a name.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Geopolitics with Ghost. I am your host, Gordon McCormick, aka the Ghost of Base Patrick Henry. Today is October 10th, 2025. Our third show of the week, actually. Feels like my 100th show of the week. A lot's happened this week, though, and there's been a lot of reason to be doing a lot of streams. So we're going, as I promised last night. Thanks for everyone for hanging out late last night. Bonus episode. Shout out to G Money and Rug Pull Radio. We took over their time slot because G wasn't doing a show yesterday. So we spent last night going through the meat and potatoes of the Hamas peace deal. And I'm glad we did, because we ended up spending like the whole 2 hours on it. I thought maybe we might get to a few other stories at the end, but none such the case. And that's fine. That has obviously been a major focus, that whole situation. Israel has been a major focus of my work here at Badlands. And so something like that deserves the time and attention that we gave to it. And, now we can focus. We can spend this episode focusing really on everything else that's happening. A lot of it is connected, of course. Everything is connected if you haven't figured that out. We probably are going to touch on a few little Middle East stories, although we're not really going to get back deep into the Hamas-Israel situation. If something breaks during the show, we'll go to that. So with that said, so if you are tuning in here on Friday at our current time on Friday afternoon, and you were expecting us to go through the Hamas-Israel situation, just understand there's another episode that you can go look at, whether you're watching on YouTube or X or Rumble, where I spent 2 hours last night in a bonus episode going through all that. How's the chat? I haven't even checked on the chat. I hope I'm not muted. I'm not. Yeah, and people in the chat are talking about Eric Rice and Ash. Yeah, we did a really awesome show with Eric Rice and Ash, like a special show yesterday on biblical Israel. Something Ash has been wanting to do since GART Dallas, which was March of 2024. We've been talking about doing it. We've been talking about doing it as like a special panel at GART. We've been talking about doing it, as like a bonus thing at GART. So many different iterations have been planned. And finally she texted me and said, let's just do this thing sometime in the near future. That was like a week or two ago. And then G Money texted me last week and said, man, I was just in an X space with this guy, Eric Rice, and he has an incredible knowledge. He's coming on Rug Pull Radio on Thursday. You need to listen. And I was blown away. So I reached out. I saw that Eric was already following me, so I followed him back and then reached out to him and set up him coming on Breaking History on Wednesday, and then him coming and doing the special with Ash and I yesterday. So that's how that whole thing came together. And we're probably going to have Eric back for more stuff. So that'll be announced here soon, very soon. Richard Royer, blink twice if we can hear you, kid. I hope you can hear me. Oh, and I want to give a shout out to Patrick Wong over on YouTube. Patrick, I am so sorry. I didn't see this until I'd already clicked the in stream button and it was automatically doing like the outro video. But I went ahead and clipped this from YouTube, and I do have YouTube open now. So I can get in the habit of actually watching the super chats on YouTube. But Patrick Wong, very base, $20 super chat. I didn't see a message attached to it. This was inside of like the StreamYard app. So I think you may have just given us the money. Thank you so much. If you have something you want to say, jump in the chat on YouTube now and say it, and I will read whatever comment you put in there, even if it's something extremely inappropriate. That might even be more preferred. So thanks again for your support, Patrick. So I thought today, well, before we get started, let's talk about GART, because we got to do some ad reads here. So we'll start here with GART. Pull up the graphic. So GART 10, we're going to Cocoa Beach a month from now. It's less than a month from now. It's November 6th through 9th. So a month from now, it'll be over. But Cocoa Beach, Florida, the hotel is right on the beach, right in the sand. Great facility. We went there 2 years ago. That was my first time ever meeting anybody at Badlands. And that was before I was even doing podcasts. I was only just a writer for the Substack. So great time. We always love going to GART. We always see a lot of familiar faces, but every single time, at least half the people there are new. And that's a good sign. It's a really healthy mix of returning guests and then new faces, returning friends and new faces. And that's a great sign that there's value in the experience. So I would encourage you to come check it out if you're in the area. I don't know if we're selling single day tickets. You got to ask Mrs. Bright. We normally sell single day tickets for Friday and Saturday, but I know this particular facility is is on the smaller side. But if you can't make it, certainly go check out the virtual ticket, badlandsmedia.tv/events. I did the virtual ticket, the first GART, which was in Arizona. You get access to the Telegram channel. The Telegram channel is kind of like the Badlands live chat, except you can post memes. So if you're familiar with like 4chan poll, it's kind of like 4chan poll. You can post memes, you can post pictures. That makes it a lot more fun. And it's still good. I mean, there's still chats going from a few GARTs ago. I know they keep them alive for months after GART. And you can contact people there. The really big benefit of GART, I think, is that people connect with one another, like who are from the same areas. And that's where we build out these Badlands local communities. Some of these communities start out with like 3 people. Like the Virginia one started. I can't remember which one it was. It may have been Cocoa Beach, because I met several people from Virginia at Cocoa Beach when I went 2 years ago, and that started with like a few people in it, and now it's like 30 people. Bunny will tell you exactly how many, because Bunny runs the entire web of nationwide communities, but she is from Virginia and is in the Virginia Badlands chat or Badlands group. So the Virginia Badlands group is what's up. So shout out to Bunny for doing that. And Bunny, if you're in the chat, say what's up. Let people know how to get in touch with you. You can go to the badlandsmedia.tv website, and there's actually a button you can click to request to be plugged into your local group. But I said that a year ago, that I thought the best thing to ever come out of Badlands was those communities, because I think ultimately that's how we're going to take back the country, is by creating networks of like-minded people who are based and who understand what the mission is. All right, so with that all said, let's get into it. I thought what I wanted to do is to start today is I wanted to go back and watch the cabinet meeting from yesterday. Yesterday, I did 4 streams. So I was streaming from 10 a.m. I joined Alpha and Ash for the first hour or so, hour plus of Badlands Daily. And then I did the Eric Rice stream, and then I did the GART special stream for virtual, like the virtual stream. And then I did Geopolitics last night after hanging out with my kids and putting them to bed. So I didn't get a chance to watch the entire cabinet meeting until today. until this morning. And I have watched it now, and there's a lot of great information in there. We're not going to watch the whole thing, but I thought maybe like the first several minutes, and then I'm probably going to skip ahead to the part where they talk about China, because the first several minutes it is all about geopolitics. So let me share the screen. And yeah, and I'll pause throughout this and just give commentary to what they're talking about, but there's just a lot of great information here.
Mr. President, we just have two quick proclamations for you to sign today. The first, today is Leif Erikson Day. Leif Erikson was a famous Viking explorer who discovered the coast of Newfoundland over a millennium ago. This is a hugely important holiday, particularly to Scandinavian Americans who celebrate his legacy as a great explorer, as a devout Christian, and really just a fascinating individual in the history of our continent.
Sweden and various other countries. We have a lot of people from Sweden, a lot of Scandinavians. This is very important for Scandinavians, and it's a great honor. Okay, and now you have another one that's...
Okay, so interesting, like the whole Viking thing is interesting. This is like the Valhalla, like with Kash Patel, and I don't know. There's something. I don't think there's anything to make like to read into it, but it is interesting. And I also wanted to pause it just to address everyone's asking about my nose. Just a reminder, my kid bashed my nose like a few weeks ago, and so it has healed up. Even before that happened, I always get like a red nose. I think it's like rosacea or something. It's just my Irishness. But anyway.
This is like
I think very non-controversial, frankly, but some people would say it's controversial. Go ahead.
This is like Explorer Day for you, sir. Today we have your Columbus Day proclamation for Monday, which we're signing a bit early. Christopher Columbus obviously discovered the New World in 1492. He was a great Italian explorer. He sailed his 3 ships, the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria, across the Atlantic Ocean and landed in what's today the Caribbean. But this is a particularly important holiday for Italian Americans who celebrate the legacy of Christopher Columbus and the innovation and explorer zeal that he represented.
In other words, we're calling it Columbus Day. Okay.
Yes.
Based, but yeah, Columbus is an interesting one. I actually did my history thesis in college on Columbus, and he didn't actually discover America. That's kind of the funny part, is he discovered the Caribbean islands, these tiny little islands in the Caribbean, and there wasn't really anything of value there. The Spanish had or the Portuguese rather. Discovered Brazil. So the Portuguese land, let me just pull a map up. And this is an important piece of history that I'm going to teach you here. And some of you may have heard me talk about this before, but I think we should just go ahead and make sure we understand. Okay. So I don't know if I can get like I don't know if I can, or you can see the lines, right? I don't think they have the latitude, longitude lines, but basically, the Portuguese land on this giant beach. It's an endless beach, an endless coastline. And then the Spanish, both of these happened in 1492. And then the Spanish land on these tiny little islands, like tiny little islands in the Antilles. And they go to the Pope because the Pope is Catholic and they're both Catholic. Portugal and Spain, of course, share the Iberian Peninsula, as it was known back then, Hispaniola. That's what this entire peninsula was known as, Hispaniola. And the Pope says, all right, you two are my most faithful countries, my most faithful nations outside of Italy. I don't want you to kill each other in a war. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to take this map and I'm going to draw a line right down the middle. And everything on the east side of this line is going to belong to Portugal. And everything on the west side of this line is going to belong to Spain. And the line was drawn right about here, where you see it says state of Amapá. It was about right there. It was right through the Amazon. And of course, the beach that the Portuguese had landed on was Brazil, and the islands that the Spanish discovered, that Columbus discovered, were the islands of the Caribbean. And so that is why today in Brazil they speak Portuguese, and everywhere else they speak Spanish. And Portugal at that time in the late 1400s that was the dominant empire of the world. The Portuguese had colonies everywhere. They were the dominant empire. The reason that it shifted to Spain in the 1500s is because Spain, when Cortez got to Mexico and he found a city made out of gold in Mexico City, Tenochtitlan, which was a highly sophisticated, very advanced city. That was like mountains of gold in Mexico. And then they actually found a mountain in Peru that was made almost like entirely out of silver. And 1 out of every 4 pieces of silver in circulation today came out of this one mountain in Peru. And it was so much silver that they actually built an entire armada just to transport it from Lima to Panama. And then they would unload it onto donkeys, walk it across the Panama Isthmus, and then load it onto the main Spanish Armada and send it across the Atlantic. So that is why that is called the Treaty of Tordesillas, 1492. And that is and because of that, because of the wealth that the Spanish pulled out of Peru and Mexico, that's what made the Spanish Empire what it was. And in response to that, these massive flotillas of gold and silver going across the Atlantic, the British and the French and the Netherlands, but really the British mostly, commissioned their naval officers. They told their naval captains to start attacking the ships and taking the gold. And they gave them what was called privateering papers. They gave them writs of permission, basically commissions to be pirates, and they were known as privateers. But they were naval. They were trained by the British Navy. They were members of the British Navy, and eventually, a lot of these captains were like, "Well, why do I need to bring the gold back to Britain?" You know, like they would hide out in these islands, the Caribbean, and they would attack the ships when they'd sail past the island. And eventually they were just like, you know what? Let's just go to these islands and live like kings with all this gold. That's how the pirates started. A lot of the pirates, by the way, remained loyal to Britain and remained like in contact with them and actually served as British governors on a lot of these islands while being pirates. It's a very sordid history, but that's where the Pirates of the Caribbean. That's why it's called Pirates of the Caribbean. It's because they were attacking the ships in the Caribbean. And that started the entire age of piracy, was that dynamic of silver and gold being extracted out of Peru and Mexico, sailed across the Atlantic by Spain, and then attacked by Britain, France, the Netherlands, mostly those three, mostly Britain. And then the guys who were living on these islands, the pirates, they would a lot of them were living like savages, because there was no civilization there. So there were pigs that naturally lived on these islands that were indigenous to these islands, or they brought pigs a lot of times and then they would breed them there. And they would skin the pigs and they would wear like the pig leather on their backs. And then they would cook the pig flesh on fire. Boucan, right? Bacon is what it became known as. And so they were French. These were the French pirates doing this. And the other sailors started calling them buccaneers, the guys who made bacon. And then that word became anglicized to buccaneer. So the term buccaneer literally means the guys who wear bacon on their back and eat bacon. That's where the term buccaneer comes from. And then the other term for French pirate is corsair. That's like the formal term, but like the slang derogatory term for a French pirate was a buccaneer, a guy who wears bacon on his back. And it was not meant as like a term of endearment. These are just guys who lived in the woods wearing bloody pig skins and eating bacon. So anyway, a little bit of history that you get when you come to this show.
That was the press that broke out in applause. Can you believe that? I've never seen that happen before. The press actually broke out in applause. Good.
And he's gonna touch on this later, but that is a sign right there. They were clapping for him, saying it's called Columbus Day. The press, the left-wing press, gave Donald Trump an ovation for signing a proclamation saying today is Columbus Day. And that's a sign, though, of a lot of these people have softened on Trump because of what he did with Hamas and Israel. And they're going to get to that here in a minute. But I also want to point out this. Giorgia Meloni, our girl Georgia, and I just love the pictures she always uses because she's always making the funniest faces. But she says, I thank President Trump, the President of the United States, Donald Trump, for restoring Columbus Day and thus reminding us that history cannot be erased. And I thank him for having, on this occasion, reaffirmed the ancient bond that unites our two nations and that both intend to strengthen, also thanks to the precious contribution of the proud Italian-American community. And that is because Columbus was from Genoa. He was an Italian explorer. He just happened to sail for Spain. It was the Spanish king, the Spanish crown, that commissioned his 4 voyages to America, but he never landed. As far as I know, I don't think he ever landed on the continent of Europe. I don't think he specifically ever landed on the continent of North America. If he did, it was just in southern Florida, and it was just for a minute. But mostly, he went to the islands in the Caribbean.
We're back. Columbus Day, we're back, Italians. Okay. We love the Italians. Okay.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
President.
Great. Thank you very much.
Have a good one, sir.
So we covered Scandinavia and Italy. Not bad. Now for the rest of the world. So I want to thank everybody for being here. As you know, last night we reached a momentous breakthrough in the Middle East, something that people said was never going to be done. We ended the war in Gaza and really, on a much bigger basis, created peace. And I think it's going to be a lasting peace, hopefully an everlasting peace. Peace in the Middle East. We secured the release of all of the remaining hostages, and they should be released on Monday or Tuesday. Getting them is a complicated process. I'd rather not tell you what they have to do to get them. They're in places you don't want to be. But we are getting the hostages back on Tuesday, Monday or Tuesday. And that'll be a day of joy. I'm going to try and make a trip over. We're going to try and get over there. And we're working on the timing, the exact timing. We're going to go to Egypt, where we'll have a signing, an additional signing. We've already had a signing representing me, but we're going to have an official signing. And the amazing thing is all of the countries over there, from Qatar to Saudi Arabia to UAE to all of them. I mean, the rich ones, the less than rich ones, they've all come together, something which is amazing, actually. They've all come together for this, and they're really probably the best relationships they've ever had. So it's been really something incredible that nobody thought it was possible to get it done. And very importantly, the hostages are coming back. As you know, they consider them hostages. They talk about them as hostages, but there are approximately 28.
Yeah, and it's important that he emphasizes that these are countries that used to hate each other just a few short years ago. And it was really during the Biden administration. I mean, we got the Abraham Accords signed in September of 2020, and that was kind of the beginning of the relations of like the tribes of Islam coming together. And you can't say the tribes of Arabia. It started with the tribes of Arabia, but which again, when you look at how the social structure, the social hierarchy of the Islamic world is constructed, but primarily the Arabian world, which is where Islam comes from, everything is built around the family unit, just like, you know, the nuclear family, just like you have in Europe. And then from the nuclear family, you then have the expanded family. So when you say family over there, you're actually referring to a larger unit than just mother, father, and children. And then multiple families would then form a clan, and then multiple clans would then form a tribe. And then you have the nation. And it sounds like between, like, since the nation state has evolved over the past century in the Middle East, you now have probably another level between tribe and nation, where maybe it's multiple tribes forming a faction, like a political faction. But that's the structure. It's family, clan, tribe, nation. And so your entire identity is built around your family, and then your clan, and then your tribe. And so there's a lot of disagreement at the lower levels, at the family level, at the clan level, at the tribal level. and that makes it very, very hard to govern because it's like everybody has a different way of doing everything, and because they're loyal to their family first, then to the clan, then to the tribe. Forming a nation becomes very, very difficult, and then getting nations to cooperate and work together is even more difficult. So that's why. And then you throw in the different ethnicities when you're talking about Turkey and Egypt and Qatar and Pakistan, Saudi Arabia and Pakistan, and Qatar and Turkey, and it's a mess. Let's keep listening.
Dead people, mostly young, mostly men, but and boys. I mean, boys. The one woman talked about her baby. Her baby's 25 years old, but to her it's her baby, and we're bringing them home. We're getting everything, and to those parents, the dead young man is just as important, as though this person were alive. It's amazing. I've never seen anything quite like it. I've been very much involved. I've never seen anything quite like it. But it's really peace in the Middle East. And you remember October 7th was terrible, but also from the Hamas standpoint, they probably lost 70,000 people. That's big retribution. But at some point, that whole thing has to stop, and we're going to see to it. Gaza is going to be slowly redone. You have tremendous wealth in that part of the world by certain countries, and just a small part of that, what they make will do wonders for Gaza. And I think you're going to see some tremendous countries stepping up and putting up a lot of money and taking care of things. But there's tremendous spirit like I haven't seen. And even the news, I won't call it fake news for this purpose, because they really were very fair today, I must tell you, in all cases. But they covered it very well. They covered it very fairly. Everybody loves it, everybody. People that were never giving us a fair shake, frankly, they can't even believe it. They're so, they're amazed by it. A lot of people are. But it was just everything came together. I think the attack was very important on Iran, because let's say that didn't happen, they'd probably by now have a nuclear weapon, numerous nuclear weapons, and therefore, even if we signed a deal, there'd be a big dark cloud over it, and it wouldn't be the same thing. So Iran's different, but Iran wants to work on peace now.
Okay, so let's just talk about, because Trump is sitting here. He's to the untrained eye, it sounds like he's rambling, right? And he's making everybody kind of endure this, but he's actually telling you, he's doing a lot of things here with his storytelling. He's telling you a story, and he's kind of, you could call it revising history, because in a way that's kind of what he's doing, but he's telling history from the perspective that I think he wants it remembered. He's presenting it like this attack on Iran had to happen, which I think a lot of us could understand it didn't need to happen. I think Trump probably thinks that, but because Israel chose to attack Iran, and then Trump stepped in, and on the 12th day sent the B-2s, blew up the facilities, and ended the war. That's what he said. There's no reason to continue. I did what y'all wanted to do. We took out the nuclear facilities. There's no reason to continue. The war is over. So now he's telling it like this great triumph has occurred. The war is over. There's no reason to revisit it. It's done. And now that it's done, listen to what he says next.
They've informed us, and they've acknowledged that they're totally in favor of this deal. They think it's a great thing. So we appreciate that, and we'll work with Iran. As you know, we have major sanctions on Iran and lots of other things. We'd like to see them be able to rebuild their country too, but they can't have a nuclear weapon. So I want to express my tremendous gratitude.
And reminder, the fatwa that was issued by, I think it was the Ayatollah, is that this was many, many years ago. I think it was 2003. Iran is not allowed to have a nuclear weapon because of their religious beliefs, because they believe that it is actually antithetical to their religion, like their belief in God. to have a nuclear weapon, something that can destroy an entire civilization, theoretically. So that's the argument they always go to. And then, of course, they're accused of lying when they say that. But that's what their formal religious doctrine, the fatwa, has been issued, is that they are not allowed to pursue a nuclear weapon. So whether they have actually been pursuing that or not is a separate question, but that's what the official Iranian position is.
To the leaders of Qatar, Egypt, and Turkey for helping us reach this incredible day and for being there. They were there with us all the way. And of course, as you know, Saudi Arabia and Jordan and so many. I will tell you, President Erdogan was personally involved in dealing with Hamas and some of the others. He's been great. They've all been really amazing. Indonesia's been amazing. Indonesia's been fantastic. The whole world is
another Muslim country. So it's like you have Muslim countries all over the world working together now, not just the Muslim countries in Arabia, not just the Muslim countries in the Middle East, but also the Muslim countries in, more Central Asia, like Pakistan. I mean, Pakistan is technically the Middle East, but it's really, Pakistan is actually part of India. Pakistan is actually, I think they used to call it, what did they used to call it? West India. That's what it was called like 100 years ago, because they share so much culture with India. I'm sorry, West Bangladesh. Is it West Bangladesh? I don't know. I'll have to fact check myself on that. But they are much more closely aligned culturally with India than they are with, Saudi Arabia, so to speak. Like Egypt. They're much more closely aligned with India than they are with Egypt. Saudi Arabia, they actually do have some shared culture there because of their proximity across the water.
Come together for this. People that didn't get along, people that didn't like each other, neighboring countries that frankly didn't like each other, but now it's just this moment in time. So we look forward to welcoming the hostages, like you can't believe, home to their families, and that'll take place early next week. We hope Monday or Tuesday. And all Americans should be proud of the role that our country has played in bringing this terrible conflict to an end. And I want to thank, some of the people. JD, you were fantastic, and Pete, you were great. Marco was fantastic. Some of you were very much involved. I'm looking around. So indirectly, I think almost everybody in this room was involved. Susie, I want to thank you very much. You were incredible. You've done an incredible job. So,
yeah, Susie Wiles, remember, Trump sent her to Israel in 2020 after she was quote unquote fired from the Trump campaign. And you know who got her fired from the Trump 2020 campaign? It was Ron DeSantis. He's the one who got her fired. Governor of Florida got her fired from the Trump campaign. And that was the official story. And then we now know that Trump sent her to Israel along with Corey Lewandowski and another Trump official to work on the Netanyahu campaign, which they didn't stay the entire time, but they were working. They basically built a database up of the entire Israeli electorate, which allowed the Netanyahu campaign to study the demographics and understand how they needed to put out messaging. But I think really what was happening is that they were gathering intel on Netanyahu and gathering intel on the Israeli electorate themselves. And then she brought it back and gave it all to Trump.
Yes, John, what you've done was invaluable. CIA, John Ratcliffe, and he's done an incredible job. So I want to thank you all, and if I'm missing anybody, I apologize, but you've been amazing. And then you have Steve Witkoff, who worked so hard. And you remember we settled 7, this is number 8, we settled 7 wars or major conflicts, but wars. And this is number 8. And the one that I thought would be maybe the quickest of all would be Russia-Ukraine, and I think that's going to happen too. But in the meantime, they're losing about 7,000 people a week, and that seems pretty bad. They're losing mostly soldiers, young soldiers. They go out to war and they're getting killed. And while it doesn't affect us in a lot of ways, we've got a big ocean in between. You don't want to see that happen. It was a big mistake. That war should have never happened. It would have never happened if I were president. So we're here this morning for a cabinet meeting as my administration continues to deliver for the American people. despite the radical left lunatics that shut down our government. You have Democrats that they've lost their way. They have no leadership. We don't even know who to deal with over there. At least they know who to deal with. We have no idea who we're dealing with over there. It's like they have no idea what they're doing. Republicans have voted repeatedly to pass a clean, nonpartisan bill to reopen government at the same funding levels. We're not going to do anything only good for health care. We're really, I think, become the party of good health care. And they keep using health care as a cudgel. They want to try and get everyone thinking about health care. We're the ones that are saving health care. In fact, one of the things we're doing is we're going to be reducing the cost of medicines by 100%, 200, 300, 500%, and even more than that, because as you know, we're in the process of favored nations right now. We've exercised a clause because we were subsidizing the entire world. The entire world pays a fraction of what the United States has been paying. And we've already, numerous Pfizer and other companies have already signed, and other countries are a bigger problem because they've been getting a subsidized rate. We've been paying for years. This has gone on for 30 years. We've been reducing the rate of drugs for other countries because we've been paying much more than we're supposed to. And they used all sorts of ideas like research and development. I said, what about Germany? What about these other countries? Aren't they paying? No, we have to pay research and development. It was all nonsense, and I couldn't listen to it anymore. So it's a very radical, big, tough shift. Very tough. We got a lot of things going on there. But, you know, and you probably heard me say this in my first term, I think it was my third year, we reduced drugs from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. And I was so proud of it. I actually had a news conference to announce it, and it was 1/8 of 1%. Think of that, which is barely a reduction. But it's the first time in 28 years that there was a reduction in drug prices for the year. So from the beginning to the end, it was 1/8 of 1%. And I was so proud of myself. I did something that nobody else could do. But when I started to think about it, I said, doesn't make sense. And then I'm starting to look at numbers where a pill or a treatment or some pharmaceutical product is selling in Europe for 10% of what we pay for in New York City or in any one of our places and cities, states. And then I see people leaving for other countries to go buy their pharmaceuticals, where they make journeys to various other countries, including Europe, where they got the best bargains of all. And I put an end to it. It's over. And now we're, in major, I guess, disputes, but we're winning the disputes by a lot. With the countries, a couple of countries said, we won't do this. I said, well, it's unfair that we're paying 10% and, you're paying just a fraction of what we're paying for the same product made in the same plant. And they said, well, we're not going to do it. I said, that's okay. You don't have to do it. But I'm going to put a tariff of 9% or 7% or whatever the amount of money is. And I'm going to put a tariff on your country for the amount of money that you're taking advantage of us for. No, you guys. I said, yeah, I can do that. I'm going to do that.
So do you see how, like, the reason I wanted the pharmaceutical segment to play out is to understand that all this stuff is connected. Everything is connected. When Trump brought what's his name, Pfizer boy, in the other day, people were freaking out. They were like, why is he giving this guy a platform? Why is he bringing him in here and slapping him on the back and saying good job? That was a strategic move. And he's going to explain it here in a second. I'm going to let him finish it, but I just want to point out the tariff. The tariff is a weapon. He's using the tariff as a weapon because the U.S. economy is that important to the world. Access to the U.S. economy is that important that he can literally say, I'm going to put a 7% tariff on top of everything else you already pay because you won't comply with our favored nation state or our favored nation status with the pharmaceutical issue. So let's keep listening.
And they would immediately agree. And it'd make the tariff substantially more than the number we're talking about. And they would immediately agree. So we have the consent, I think, Bobby, of every country, essentially. they know that if they don't do it, we're going to put a tariff on for double the price, and then they're going to do it. So we never had that before. You never had anybody in here that knew what the hell they were doing, I'll be honest. It really
True.
It makes me angry.
Makes me angry
for
too.
Years and years, and this started many years ago. And basically, we subsidize the world. So this is going to have a huge positive impact on Medicare, Medicaid, even Social Security. But anything where there's pharmaceuticals, drugs involved.
And that's the critical thing right there. So I know that ultimately, long term, the goal is basically to wean America and the world off of pharmaceuticals and to go back to holistic health. That's where we want to get to eventually. But this has to be done. All this has to be done incrementally, because if anything that happens too radically, as much as it may feel good to watch it happen in the moment that it's announced, it's going to have a cataclysmic effect on the social fabric of our society and our economy. There are a lot of people who are employed directly or indirectly because of the pharmaceutical industry. The pharmaceutical industry obviously employs people directly, but then also because of all of the money that they spend, they're paying for things that require construction, that require marketing, advertising, all this different infrastructure that is indirectly being funded by the pharmaceutical companies. Now, what this means is that these pharmaceutical companies are getting their golden goose taken away. They can no longer just crank up the price on these drugs. But it's really not just the pharmaceutical companies, because if you understand the way that Obamacare was put together and written by the insurance companies. It's really the insurance companies in a lot of ways that are benefiting from it, because they created monopolies in all these states. And there's actually a lot of pharmaceutical products that people who are being prescribed them by their doctors won't be able to get because their insurance company won't pay for it, because it's $800 a month for the treatment, $800 a month, a pill that you have to take every single day. And there's plenty of pills out there that are legitimate pharmaceutical products that actually do address address something. But they aren't covered by the insurance company, right? So the people either have to pay out of pocket or they just don't take it. And Medicare and Medicaid is another situation where Medicare and Medicaid either is getting bankrupted by the price of these drugs that they have to cover because the price just gets jacked up and up and up and up and up, or they just won't cover it. And they're just like, all right, we're just not going to cover it now. So more products will be covered by Medicare and Medicaid, and Medicare and Medicaid won't be bankrupted, meaning that the taxpayers won't be on the line to pay for overpriced pharmaceutical products. Meanwhile, the overall revenue of these pharmaceutical companies is going to go down dramatically. So while what I just laid out may sound like, well, wait a minute, aren't we just making it easier for the pharmaceutical companies to sell products because they'll be more affordable and Medicare and Medicaid will be able to pay for it? Well, yes and no. People will have more options for what they can do. Right now, it's like you have to basically take whatever your insurance company is willing to pay for, and if everything comes down in price, your insurance companies are going to be willing to pay for a lot more. But ultimately, the pharmaceutical companies are losing money, lots of money over this, and that's what we want to see. We want to see waning off. And I can tell you, I know people who work in the pharmaceutical industry. I know people who were laid off from the pharmaceutical industry over a year ago and still haven't gotten a job. And are still unemployed because they're just cutting their sales forces. You know, these pharma reps that used to just go into doctors' offices and call on doctors, and 20 years ago they were just giving the doctors trips to Hawaii if they prescribe enough product. Those jobs are going away. Like I know of pharmaceutical companies who have laid off their entire sales force, and they haven't hired anybody new. Entire divisions are being shut down on the sales end. Like they're still creating the product and it's out there for the doctors to prescribe, but nobody is out there pushing it. Nobody's out there going to the doctor's offices and saying, prescribe this. Here's a box of donuts. Don't forget to prescribe my drug. That is very, very real. It's anecdotal, but I know several people who have confirmed that to me that has happened. And so these are very real effects. And that started during the Biden administration. It didn't start during the Trump administration. It started during the Biden administration.
it's going to have a tremendous impact. So we're going to get drug reductions of 100%. I told you 1/8 of 1% that I was proud of myself. Now you're going to get 100%, 150%, 200, 300, 400, 500%. You're going to get the biggest drug reductions that you've ever seen. And they're already, I guess they're starting to kick in, but we've made deals with numerous companies and we're going for the full bore. We want whatever the price is. So that would mean that the world price, because the world is bigger than the United States, a lot more people, but the world price will go up a little bit and our price will come down a lot. So if a pill sells for $10 in London and $100 here, the pill will go to $20 in London and $20 for us. It's pretty simple. And that is a number that nobody can even fathom. It's a little like tariffs. Nobody knew how big they were. Nobody knew until they started seeing the trillions of dollars that have come in. I don't know why they didn't understand it. It's something they should have understood. We were taking...
Because they're criminals. Rand Paul is still, I think yesterday he was posting about how evil tariffs are and how Donald Trump is going to destroy the U.S. economy with tariffs. I mean, Rand Paul is just exposing himself for being an absolute meat puppet for the American corporate class.
Advantage of for years with tariffs, and now I don't want to say we're taking advantage, but we've become a very strong country because of the money that's coming in. Republicans have voted repeatedly to pass a clean, nonpartisan bill to reopen our government, and remember, at the same funding levels both parties have supported in the past. So the radical Democrats have chosen to put the economy of our country. We have the best economy we've ever had. We had the best economy in my first term.
And by the way, we'll just show some headlines as we're going through this. U.S. Democrats won't end shutdown unless planes fall out of the sky. This is CNN reporting this. Over 9,000 flights have already been canceled or delayed due to a shortage of air traffic controllers across the country. Democrats have said they will not agree to end the U.S. government shutdown unless the Republicans meet their demands, with one senior aide telling CNN it would take an airline catastrophe for the party to back down.
Are trying to obstruct. They don't want to have a good economy. I don't think they want to have a good country. That's why they try and stop our law enforcement from doing what we did in Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C., we have a great, safe, beautiful capital right now. Beautiful. It's so safe. You can walk down the street. Numerous people standing before me were mugged. And you're not going to get mugged anymore. We have a safe capital, one of the safest. We took it from one of the most unsafe places to one of the most safe places in the country. And we also beautified it, and we're in the process of doing even more so. So we're very proud of our capital. Again, we were embarrassed by our capital. A lot of people being killed that come from Iowa, Indiana, Florida, that come up and they end up getting shot. They're not getting shot. We moved out 1,700 people approximately, right? Approximately 1,700 hardened criminals, career criminals.
Interesting number.
Moved them out. So Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries and the congressional Democrats are holding the entire federal government hostage. I will tell you, a lot of Democrats want to get this thing open too. They do. They're calling us, and they just want to get it open. And all we're doing is saying, just play the same thing until we get it straight. And they don't know how to go about it. I mean, and the problem is we really don't know who the hell is leading the Democrats. You have this AOC. I don't know her at all, but I watched her the other day. She said, well, if they want, they could come to my office. That's not leadership, you know. The only one that challenged her actually was Nancy Pelosi, and Nancy's not looking too good. I don't know what happened to Nancy, but she's not looking great. But she was the only one. I give her credit. She was the only one that challenged her. But AOC said that they can come to her office and negotiate, the Republicans. And we're saying, oh, I didn't know she was in leadership. But she's taking Hakeem Jeffries' place, and Schumer's afraid that she's going to run against him. And right now, I don't know. It can change. Life is crazy, right? But right now he can't beat. I don't think he can beat anybody. So he'll lose in a primary. I would say he'll retire before he loses in a primary. So I think Schumer's going to retire because he can't beat anybody. His polls are so bad. Meanwhile, the Democrat shutdown is causing pain and suffering for hardworking Americans, including our military, our air traffic controllers, and impoverished mothers, people with young children, people that have to.
So you got to love that. He's like, we don't even know who to negotiate with because they don't have a leadership anymore. And then he calls out AOC. He's like, I don't really know AOC, but, to her credit, she's the only one who calls out, who challenges Nancy Pelosi. More and more AOC is looking like the Judas goat. Like she was sent there to basically make a mockery of the Democrat brand. And she has done that. She has destroyed the Democrat brand. All right, let's kind of scrub through here because I want to get to the part where they talk about China. So they're going to talk about law enforcement. They're going to talk about Memphis. They're going to talk about Chicago, cleaning up Memphis, cleaning up Chicago. Chicago doesn't want the National Guard there, but Memphis absolutely welcomes them.
That opportunity is War Department. You don't get peace without strength, and our job is to be the strength part of the equation and deliver that when necessary, as you demonstrated with your order of Midnight Hammer, and the entire world saw. And I just want to echo.
Midnight Hammer was the attack on Iran, the nuclear facilities, which ended the Iran conflict with Israel.
What Marco said, it is a personal honor to be able to witness the way you lead and negotiate. I wish people had a full understanding of what that looks like, that historic nature. A lot of us vets, the vice president, Tulsi, Lee, Doug, probably after decades of war and the chaos that was unleashed through reckless and foolish American policies, never thought this kind of peace would be possible. Yet, with your strength, with your ability to wield trade negotiations, personal relationships, to open up that opportunity is truly historic on the world stage. And it creates a whole number of other cascading effects. And watching Marco and the vice president and Steve and Jared.
To let this moment pass, Mr. President.
All right, I do want to back up because we should listen to what Marco Rubio says here when Trump calls on him.
The events of yesterday, but
we have the guillotines. We're going to use them. The things that
what's different is like anarchists.
it is. It really is.
It's really different than a lot of the others. This is a sick situation, but those are anarchists. Those are people that want to overthrow government. They're really degenerates. And we're finding out who is supplying all of those beautiful signs and everything
Well,
else.
that's been fantastic. His team finding the financial networks is great. That's what gives everybody.
Scott will do that. That's easy for Scott.
His team finding the financial networks, referring to Antifa, is great. She's talking about Scott Bessent. That is Kristi Noem, Secretary of Homeland Security, talking about hunting down Antifa and finding the funding networks. Who do you think they're talking about, guys? If you haven't figured it out, they're talking about the State Department. They're talking about not just Soros. Soros is just the public face of it. There's a whole network of people who are behind this, and probably, frankly, people that we know and people that we view as being like MAGA aligned. It would not surprise me if we're going to learn that some major Republican donors are behind some of this stuff. Because think about it. What does Donald Trump and MAGA represent? The existential end of the Republican establishment. He's a much bigger threat and always has been to the Republican Party than he is to the Democrats, because the Democrats can use him as a counterpoint in their campaign rhetoric. The Republicans can't run against him, right?
We got a great team, sir.
That's good. How about we go to Marco? You could talk a little bit about what's going on, and
well,
go ahead.
yeah, Mr. President. I don't know if one day perhaps the entire story will be told about the events of yesterday, but suffice.
One day, maybe the whole story will be told about what happened yesterday, referring to the finalized peace deal between Hamas and Israel, which I think is just the beginning of another conflict. But we'll talk about that another day. We talked about it last night extensively.
To say it's not an exaggeration that none of it would have been possible without the President of the United States being involved. It really began with your trip to the Middle East. where these relationships were forged with partners in the region, personal relationships, close relationships that created the foundation where all of this was possible. Where I think this really took a turn. Remember, a month ago.
I don't think he's referring to, by the way, the trip from May. I think he's referring to the sword dance May 2017. That's the trip to the Middle East that I think is the significant one. Now, the one that happened more recently is a reminder to everybody. But when they showed up this past May, I mean, you saw how they were welcomed. Like, everybody knew who they were and everybody loved them. So
I never thought this was possible. Where it really took a turn about a month ago, less than a couple weeks ago, is when we were at the United Nations and you convened an historic meeting, not simply of Arab countries, but of Muslim majority countries from around the world, including Indonesia was there, Pakistan was there, and created this.
Remember, we talked about that meeting. That was the meeting that was led by Qatar and Saudi Arabia, but as he said, included Turkey, included Pakistan, included Indonesia.
Coalition behind this plan. Then on that following Monday, you met with the Prime Minister of Israel here, and that plan was presented. And then, of course, our great negotiating team followed up on it. In the interim, again, perhaps the stories will be told, perhaps they will never be told. The President had some extraordinary phone calls and meetings.
Look at Trump's face when he says this. Extraordinary phone calls, because he says in the interim between the meeting at the UN with the Muslims and Netanyahu coming in on that Monday, you had some extraordinary phone calls. Just watch Trump's face and listen to everything they say after this.
That following Monday, you met with the Prime Minister of Israel here, and that plan was presented. And then, of course, our great negotiating team followed up on it. In the interim, again, perhaps the stories will be told, perhaps they will never be told. The President had some extraordinary phone calls and meetings that required a high degree of intensity and commitment and made this happen. And I think what's important to understand is
that was Trump calling up Netanyahu and putting his nuts on the table, so to speak, and saying, I'm the one in charge here, Netanyahu, not you. So I respectfully disagree with Colonel McGregor that Netanyahu is calling the shots.
Is that yesterday what happened was really a human story. There's a geopolitical aspect to it, there's no doubt about it. It creates the conditions for Gaza to one day be a normal place again and people to have a better life and Israelis to be safe. But yesterday was a human story. And because of the work you put in, and honestly, not only is there no other leader in the world that could have put this together, Mr. President, but frankly, I don't know of any American president in the modern era that could have made this possible because of the actions you have taken unrelated to this and because of who you are and what you've done and how you're viewed. And this week,
Trumpomania. That's what he's talking about right there. He's talking about the book of Trump. He's talking about the relationships that Donald Trump has forged throughout his entire life, the character he's built for himself, the way the world views him, the way the world knows him, right? The way he leverages economic, financial pressure along with incentives, the incentive structures that he presents. He always leads with the carrot, never the stick, but he always has a very big stick in the other hand and the other side knows he will use that stick. He's demonstrated that. But he's talking about Trumpomania. That's exactly what he's talking about.
Weekend, because of that, at some point very soon, we are going to see 20 living human beings emerge from the darkness into the light for the first time in 2 years. And that
just have to point out darkness to light. That's notable.
That is because not only were you used the credibility and the power and the prestige of this office and the relationships you created, and you committed yourself to making it happen. And I think it will go down as a historic moment in the history of our country and something our country should be very proud of. That we have a president that's committed to not just peace, but to the human aspect of reuniting these families. My last point on this is just a couple days ago, Secretary Lutnick hosted us all, many of us, at the Kennedy Center. And we had these families, we've interacted with them for so many years, for 2 years now. And the stories are heartbreaking, both whose families are alive and those who are deceased as well, who want their relatives back so that they can complete the process of grieving. And it was, we had all hoped that perhaps that was the day that we would have an announcement for them on the anniversary of the 7th. But I know you were able to speak to some of those families last night. And I just hope the whole nation understands how incredibly proud they should be of their president and of their country for the role that they've played. And I don't want to let this moment pass, Mr. President, without also noting the incredible work of Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner. They're an incredible team working together. facing some substantial impediments to even being there this weekend and doing it. Let me just leave it at that. And they've done a great job on your behalf, Mr. President. They deserve a tremendous amount of credit. But thank you for what you've done for the world. For the world.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I think because we have a very
Okay, so let's just note here what has been said. It's everything that I've been talking about for the past however long. It doesn't matter. Trump points out the Arab partners and how important they are. They have been to this whole process. These countries that are working together, that have hated each other in the past, but now are working together. Rubio points out the relationships that Trump has had. He points out Trumpomania. He points out the human stories. Like, this is a geopolitical issue, of course, but this is actually a human story. And that's, again, what I've also been saying, is that Trump understands the human side of this. Like the video I made of Mahmoud Abbas and Trump. I think Trump looked at Mahmoud Abbas and said, I'm going to help you fix this. We're going to do this together. We're going to have to present it. The presentation is going to have to be a little bit of a, bob and weave. There's going to be kayfabe, but we're working together, Abbas. We're going to do this. And that's a human story. And anyone who thinks that Trump was against the Arabs or against Palestine or against Abbas is out of their mind. Like, this whole time, Trump has been working with Abbas rather, to liberate Palestine from Netanyahu, liberate Palestine from the Zionists.
busy day with all that's going on. What we'll do is maybe just a few of you raise your hand if you
And with Christie in the cities across the country to make sure American citizens.
Okay, so the last thing I want to do, and then we'll get off this video, is I want to this cabinet meeting. I want to just get to the part about China.
Is obviously the president of the United States.
Oh, and the last thing that Mark Rubio said, Steve Wickoff, Jared Kushner. I pointed to them as well. Kushner is, I still think, a very important player here because of his relationship with MBS. Him and MBS are super tight in his relationship with the Qataris. Going back 20 years, he's known the Qatar. The Qataris are the ones who came and saved him when his family's business almost went bankrupt. It wasn't Netanyahu. It wasn't the Jewish diaspora. It was the Qataris who came and helped him. That's very important, I think. Okay, so let's find this part about China.
More for those drugs, and they were where they
just don't take it.
Yeah,
Give it.
and then they're crushing the vaccines and they're crushing Tylenol right here. This is a great cabinet meeting. I recommend y'all go listen to it. It really is.
On the international peacekeeping force that's going to be deployed to Gaza soon, do you expect that Pakistan, Turkey, other countries to contribute forces? Has that become firmed up? And also, the shutdown, it seems like in the House there's a majority support for a temporary extension of the Obamacare subsidies, perhaps minus the funds for illegal immigrants. Is that how you see the deal to end the shutdown happening?
Well, I see the deal just getting extended as we continue to talk, but we're willing to pay because we're paying. It's very simple. We're paying. The Democrats are the ones that caused this problem, and it's a big problem for them. And they have a lot of break in their ranks. But so I see that, I think that'll get worked out. But we want to get back before we do this. We don't want to have a gun held to our head. We don't like that, and the public doesn't like it either. So we want to get back, and I think it's going to work out. I think it's going to work out very well. It's something that shouldn't have happened. This was supposed to take place before the election. This was supposed to take place on September 28th before the election. We shouldn't even be talking about this right now. This is actually something that shouldn't have even happened. Yeah, please.
Mr. President, looking at
That was a rookie move, by the way, dude, asking two different questions at the same time that have nothing to do with one another. Because you notice how Trump completely ignored his question about the Pakistanis and the Turks and the international security force. It's like, that was a really, really stupid rookie move, bro. It's like, ask the question that you want the answer to. Because Trump is not going to speak for the Arabs. He's going to let the Arabs figure that out on their own. He's going to let the Muslims figure out that out on their own.
what guarantee
We got out, and they answered to Jared. So Jared's a very smart guy. He did the Abraham Accords. As some people say, the Abraham Accords, which I love the way that sounds. But he did the Abraham Accords. It was a great thing. 4 big countries joined. If I were president, if the election would have,
I still need to know who says Abraham.
Were involved.
Like, I have not seen anyone say Abraham Accords except for Trump. So I don't know where that's coming from. It's not how the Israelis say it. They say Avraham with a V. So yeah, and this China thing, I don't know why they're not addressing it. I definitely had the clip. Let me see if I could just find it on X. Well, we'll just move on from it. But yeah, I mean, basically they're talking about purchasing soybeans. They're going to purchase soybeans from us. It has to do with the farmers and the agriculture. I think this might actually be it right here.
Fertilizer, it includes.
Let us down. Biden, every single thing. Remember I said to the farmers, buy larger tractors and more land. And that's exactly what happened. They did well. But we do suffer. I'd like you to discuss that maybe for a second, Brooke. Very quickly, by the way.
Yes, sir.
But would you just talk about how Biden let us down? Biden, every single thing, every problem the farmer has is because Biden didn't do anything for 4 years. Go ahead.
No, I think that's right. This president has been unequivocal in his support of the farmers. First of all, in term one, we worked on it so hard and opened up markets, but especially this term. But here's what everyone has to understand. The farm economy is in a very uncertain time, but that isn't because of the current trade negotiations, although certainly the China part is part of that. But we inherited a slew of issues. First of all, as the president said, when we left Trump 1, we had an agriculture trade surplus. When we came back for Trump 2, it was a $50 billion ag deficit. That isn't everything, that's just agriculture. The second part is the cost of inputs for our farmers increased on average between 30 and 38%, but that includes fertilizer, it includes fuel, it includes interest rates, it includes labor. All of this came about under Joe Biden, a 47% increase in the cost of labor that now Secretary Chavez-DeRimmer and Noam and I are working on. Fuel is coming down, thank you. Interest rates, thankfully, are coming down. A 73% increase in interest rates for our farmers. They couldn't get loans to make sure that they could move forward. So that's all really, really important. And I think we have to realize what the president's commitment is this, that we're moving into an era of rural prosperity, of a golden age for our farmers in rural America. The trade renegotiations and the trade realignment that Jameson and Scott and Howard have led with the president's leadership is unlike anything that's happened in the history of our country. And those that will benefit the most are the original Americans, our farmers and our ranchers. The president has committed, if we need a bridge, he has talked about that to get us from the Biden years to the new Trump era. That's what we're working on every day. We've got to get the government reopened so that we can move forward on that. And once we do, we'll be able to move out a significant program to help our farmers. Long term, we have to change this hamster wheel of government. We've got to ensure that the farmers have the market to sell, and it's a national security issue and onshoring a lot of the food as well. So, sir, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
A national security issue. That's interesting. That's an interesting choice of words. Brooke. Geopolitics with Ghost. We'll be back in a minute.
They say confidence starts with a smooth skin. And baby, Soft Disclosure Lotion delivers.
I swear by this stuff. Like, I kid you guys not. This is the first lotion I've ever had in my entire life that, like, I don't get ashy after I put it on any part of my body. Like, my hands are always dry, and my hands have not gotten ashy without, like, rinsing them through water and washing them with soap since I started putting Soft Disclosure on. Like, it is Black Man approved. I kid you not.
Black Man approved. You heard him. And let's be real. If it can handle his hands, it can handle anything.
Feet are like, they get so dry, like the heels of them it'll just kind of like flake off. Like, but with soft disclosure, once you put it on, like it starts to absorb it.
Yeah, he went there. Don't worry, we won't show you his feet, but trust us, they're smoother too. Soft Disclosure Lotion is made with aloe, goat's milk, honey, and our exclusive oil blend that actually restores your skin barrier. Visit softdisclosure.com, use code BADLANDS, and get 15% off.
I'm excited to announce that we're having our biggest 3-in-1 sale ever with a limited edition product, a back in stock special, and a closeout deal you won't find anywhere else. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to get our MyPillow bed sheets only $29.88. Any color, any style, any size, even kings, regular $119.98, only $29.88. Once they're gone for good. How about our My Towels? They're finally back in stock, but not for long. Get a 6-piece My Towel set, regular $69.98, now only $39.98. And for the first time and the only time ever, get our limited edition premium My Pillows. They're made with Giza cotton and designer gusset. Queen $17.98, Kings only $19.98. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to get the best offers ever. Quantities are extremely limited, so order now.
What is the Sovereign Alliance? The Sovereign Alliance are a collection of leaders and countries that are aligned not in the vision for their countries, but against a vision that has been thrust upon them. I believe that the Sovereign Alliance is less a battle for something and more a battle against something. They are against globalism, collectivism. They are against the rules-based international order.
Sovereign Alliance, the latest addition to Badlands Rise merch, available now at badlandsmedia.tv/rise.
All right, welcome back to Geopolitics with Ghost. As we head into the fire of World War III, because we have been in World War III for many, many years now. But what we're trying to avoid a much, much, much larger conflict between Israel and Iran, which would bring, of course, Russia and China into a direct conflict with the United States. So with that in mind, and I forgot who it was. Somebody in the chat was asking, Bravis was asking Brooke Rollins. That was Brooke Rollins speaking there at the end. And for those wondering whose voice that was in the soft disclosure commercial, that was Alpha's voice. And if you have any pictures of your feet, I would highly encourage you to send them to Alpha and tell him that Ghost told you to do this. Just trust me on that. All right, so let's get into the news, and we'll go through some headlines here. And the first headline is, again, this is going back. I said if anything came up with the Middle East, we were going to talk about it. But this is actually an American story. It's an American soil. Pentagon agrees to host Qatari F-15 fighter jets and pilots at Idaho Air Base. U.S. agrees to host Qatari Emiri Air Force facility at Mountain Home Air Force Base for F-15 pilot training.
I'll just say we are honored and excited to be signing an additional agreement here with Qatar. And it's been an interesting couple of weeks, I will say. Yes, Mr. We're glad to welcome you here. We're grateful for the strong partnership that we have the way you support our troops at Al-Udeid, Your Excellency, the line of communication we've had together, which has been robust ever since the beginning of this administration, and then especially since the events that have transpired over the last month. We want to thank you. I also want to thank you for the release of the Americans detained in Afghanistan. The American Amir Amiri on September 28th. Qatar mediated that, just like you have been a core part of what has unfolded in Gaza. A historic moment. No one other than President Trump could have achieved the peace that we believe will be a lasting peace in Gaza, and Qatar played a substantial role from the beginning, working with our folks to ensure that came about. So I want to thank you for that historic peace. We look forward to joining the President as that gets, it's already been delivered, but as that's formally signed as well. And I'm also proud that today we're signing a letter of acceptance to build a Qatari Emiri Air Force facility at the Mountain Home Air Base in Idaho. The location will be host a contingent of Qatari F-15s and pilots to enhance our combined training, increase lethality, interoperability. It's just another example of our partnership. And I hope you know, Your Excellency, that you can count on us. We saw in Midnight Hammer, in those moments when we needed support in the region, that Qatar was there without a doubt, without a blink. And that has meant a great deal. I've had the opportunity to see that firsthand operationally. I want to thank you. I want to thank your country for that, for hosting our troops. And it's wonderful to welcome you to the Pentagon. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. If I may say some words.
Let's listen to the Qatari Defense Minister. Let's listen to him.
Thank you for your warm welcomes and kind remarks. It is an honor to be at the Pentagon and to meet with you as we reaffirm the strong, enduring partnership between the state of Qatar and the United States. Our nations share a deep defense relationship grounded in a mutual respect and a common vision for peace and stability in the Middle East. Qatar hosting of the U.S. forces at Al-Udeid Air Base stand as a cornerstone of these alliances and a testament to our collective commitment to regional and global security. Mr. Secretary, we welcome President Trump's executive order reaffirming American commitment to Qatar's security and sovereignties. It reflects the strength of our alliances and our shared belief that peace is the best preserved through strength and partnership. We also value the close cooperation between Doha and Washington that led to the signing of the Gaza Peace Plan on October 8th. This historic achievement underscores what can be accomplished when our nations work together with courage and trust, amongst other partners such as Egypt and Turkey. We further welcome today's signing of the letter of acceptance establishing a Qatari Emir Air Force facility and Mountain Home Air Base in Idaho. This step strengthens interoperabilities, enhance joint readiness, and advance our shared defense goals. Mr. Secretary, together we will continue to deepen this strategic partnership in pursuit of lasting peace and shared security. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, so a few things. It's worth noting that, number one, when the Qataris come to the United States, they wear Western suits. I think, again, these are just little things that I noticed that I think are worth pointing out, because they dress in their traditional garb when they're at home, and when they're traveling to other places. When they go to the UN in New York City, they wear Western suits. When they come to Washington, D.C. to meet with the president, to meet with Pete Hegseth, they're wearing Western suits. The UAE generally will do that as well. The Emiratis, the Saudis do not. The Saudis stick to what they are, and I respect that. I respect that they, especially MBS. MBS is like, he's 100% a Saudi. He's never going to be anything else, and I respect that. But there's something about that speaks like a good twin, evil twin in my mind. They mentioned this guy helping to get the American hostages back from Afghanistan. Remember, it was Qatar who, the Doha Agreement is what it's called. That was the agreement between President Trump and the Taliban to turn Afghanistan back over to the Taliban, pull out the U.S. military, right? And then in exchange, the Taliban were going to hunt down terrorists for us. And they did. They hunted down the ISIS-K guys who bombed the Abbey Gate. And it was Qatar who put that whole thing together. So we're hosting a Qatari airbase in Idaho. That's the long and short of it. Remember, Qatar hosts CENTCOM, it's now the largest military base in the Middle East because of like after Bagram was shut down in Afghanistan. And that just kind of like reminding you of that is like, that's how like incredible it was that Israel fired a missile into Qatar, where we have our largest air base. And by the way, as Wickoff pointed out to Tucker, Qatar is the only country in the world that actually offered to pay for everything around the base, the infrastructure, the roads. Normally, the U.S. taxpayer pays for that. Like whenever we build a base in a foreign country, the U.S. taxpayer will fund the infrastructure around the base that supports the base. The Qataris were like, no, we'll pay for that. This is our country. Like we're honored to have you here. We'll pay for that. That's a partner. That's what we want. We want partnerships like that. Training these pilots to fly F-15s. I would love to ask General Quast about the significance of that. But remember, we want these countries to defend themselves. We don't want to have to go fight for them whenever something happens, right? And so part of that is them understanding how to fly F-15s, how to fly F-35s, how to fly F-18s. Like these are the steps the incremental steps to sovereignty, and we want them to have sovereignty. We don't want them to be a vassal of the U.S. where the U.S. taxpayer has to subsidize everything for them. So I think this is a good sign. We obviously want a good relationship with Qatar, right? Especially right now, trying to navigate this whole situation with creating world peace. And remember, 2017, MBS went to war with Qatar with the backing of Trump. Okay, and that pushed Qatar out of the sphere of influence of the Arab League and into the arms of Iran, of which it had been enemies. It had no relationship with Iran before that. It was forced to reestablish that relationship with Iran. It strengthened ties with Russia and with China. And then I think Qatar comes back in January 2021, signs the peace deal with MBS at the 5 days before Trump leaves office. And then I think Qatar becomes the conduit between us, like the white hats in America, and Putin, Xi, Iran, all of it. So just my theory, my speculation, but it's worth noting that some people are not happy about this. You can kind of guess who that might be, but Laura Loomer is crashing out yet again. The people of Idaho need to revolt against the creation of a Qatari airbase in their state. This cannot stand. Every single politician in Idaho needs to be put on notice and told they won't get your vote unless they condemn the creation of a jihadi airbase in Idaho. I'd be willing to temporarily move to Idaho to help spearhead this effort. So if you haven't noticed the pattern yet, let me just explain the pattern. Everything that President Trump does, Laura Loomer runs in and tries to subvert President Trump and tries to undo what he's doing everywhere. When he went to the Middle East in May, she spent the whole week posting about how all these people Trump was meeting with were bad people and were terrorists. She questioned the fact that Trump was being given a 747 from Qatar and whether that was even legal. She is a foreign agent acting on behalf of a foreign government. She is not acting on behalf of the American people, on behalf of MAGA. We have to point that out. Enjoy your 30 pieces of silver, Laura. All right. So now let's actually get away from the Middle East and let's go to Venezuela, because this is where what I really wanted to talk about last night. Colombia accuses U.S. of starting a war. American strikes off Venezuela, which have killed Colombian citizens, are not about drugs, according to President Gustavo Petro. Colombian President Gustavo Petro has accused the U.S. of trying to start a war in the Caribbean under the guise of an anti-drug campaign, adding that Colombian citizens were killed in the latest strikes off the coast of Venezuela. In a post on social media on Wednesday, Petro claimed that the campaign is not about narcotics, but rather resources in the region. The White House dismissed the claim as baseless, according to Reuters. The U.S. has been conducting airstrikes targeting suspected drug smuggling vessels near Venezuela and what it described as an effort to curb narcotics trafficking in the Caribbean. Washington has long accused Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro of having ties to the drug cartels. Maduro has denied the accusations and has insisted that the attacks are part of an attempt to depose him. In recent weeks, the U.S. has sunk at least 4 boats it claimed were carrying narcotics off the coast of Venezuela, killing more than 20 people. Quote, evidence shows that the last boat bomb was Colombian, with Colombian citizens on board, Petro wrote. The Colombian president claimed the U.S. campaign was not about drugs, but about control of natural resources. Quote, there is no war against smuggling. There is a war for oil, he wrote, calling the attacks, quote, an aggression against all of Latin America and the Caribbean. Quote, end quote. For years, Colombia was regarded as Washington's closest partner in South America. I want you to think about that. Let me read this again. For years, Colombia, think Pablo Escobar, right? Colombia is where that's like the name that's synonymous with cocaine, right? Was regarded as Washington's closest partner in South America. Through Plan Colombia, a multi-billion-dollar U.S. aid initiative launched in 2000, successive Colombian governments granted U.S. forces access to local bases and backed U.S.-led efforts to isolate Venezuela. That policy shifted after Petro was elected in 2022. He moved to restore diplomatic relations with Caracas and called for a more independent foreign policy and regional cooperation. Okay, so let's go back to the beginning of the show. Who did we talk about? Columbus, right? Okay, so I told you that I wrote my senior thesis as an undergrad. I was a history major about Columbus, in part about Columbus, but it was supposed to be about piracy. Columbus, on his final voyage, discovers Central America. So on his final voyage, they actually land. I think they land. I want to say they don't hit the Yucatan, but they come very close to the Yucatan, and then they actually end up landing. I believe it's in Colombia, which is why Colombia is called Colombia. It's called Colombia because that is where Columbus went on his final voyage. Columbus. Okay. What's interesting is when they're in this area right here, like very near the Yucatan. There's Columbus gets very sick and he's like in bed basically for the rest of the trip. He's extremely sick. His brother actually takes over. I was like reading their captain's logs. So like I was getting first primary source information on all this. And on one of the pages, on one of the dates, the brother writes about this boat they come across, because up until that point, every civilization they've run into are extremely primitive. These are like primitive people living on tiny islands, and they basically have like fire and that's it, right? Then all of a sudden they come across this enormous boat that they say has like 75 people on it. They're all highly decorated in like jewelry. They all have like sophisticated looking clothing on. The boat is obviously very sophisticated. It's not a sailboat. It's a rowboat with giant oars on it. But it's a very, very highly crafted, well-made boat with 75 people on it. Everything they had seen up until then was basically a tree trunk that was hollowed out into a canoe. That's the only thing they had seen up until that point. And it was, of course, the Mayans that they had run into. And they all had like jade ornaments on their noses, the proboscis jewelry, but that was a sign of nobility in Mayan and Aztec culture. So that was kind of like a chance encounter that almost like Columbus almost found, a high civilization, but missed them. But instead he lands in Colombia, and in Colombia, the brother writes about these, these very goofy natives that are running around with fanny packs on. They have these little fanny packs, and the whole time you sit there and talk to them, they're butt naked except for these little fanny packs that they're wearing. And the whole time they're just sitting there doing this, just brushing their teeth with their finger the entire time. And then they stick their hand in the fanny pack and they brush their teeth more. And they're like, and their teeth are all rotten out. They noted how they all had terrible dental hygiene. And of course, what they're rubbing on their teeth is cocaine. They're rubbing cocaine on their teeth. And they said that these guys were of any of the natives they ran into, they're the fastest natives they ever seen. These guys could run through the jungle because they were all high on coke. faster than anything they ever seen. They were like lightning moving through the jungle. But relatively peaceful, goofy, not very sophisticated, not high civilization necessarily. But they were, fanny packs. All of them were addicted to coke. Like all these guys they ran into were addicted to coke and just wore fanny packs around, just rubbing cocaine into their gums all day. So that was Columbus, though. That was Columbus's final trip. So Colombia, of course, is where all the cocaine is. That's where all the cocaine comes from. And that predates, of course, even European civilization, like the European colonization. So we have to remember that. All right. So then we can go to, going back to this article real quick. Plan Colombia, the multi-billion-dollar USAID initiative, launched in 2000. A multi-billion-dollar USAID, like that's USAID, right? USAID. Colombia is our closest ally. Pablo Escobar, Colombia, our closest ally. One of my college professors, a general, was actually the guy who led the team in to take out Pablo Escobar. So I heard that story firsthand of what they did. And and so Colombia is like our top ally, and they oppose Maduro until 2022. All the things happened during the Biden administration. This guy Petro comes in, suddenly he likes Maduro, suddenly he wants to establish ties with Maduro. And he comes out and discloses these boats that Trump is bombing are not actually Venezuelan. They're actually Colombian, and they have Colombian citizens on them. Way to admit that it's actually Colombia that are running the drugs, not Venezuela. But this is signal right here where he says there is no war against smuggling. There is a war for oil, calling the attacks an aggression against all of Latin America and the Caribbean. And of course, what he is referring to is the Guyana oil dispute. Okay, and the Guyana oil dispute is all about this map right here. Okay, and so I'm looking, just to give you context. So here's the map that I'm looking at. This yellow thing is the Stabroek block. Like it's a giant oil belt that's in the ocean off of the coast of Venezuela. And just to give you context of where we are, here's Colombia, here's Venezuela, here's Guyana. We're looking right here. This is where the map is. Okay, so see this little inlet, this bay. Let's go back to. There's the bay right there. There's the inlet. The dark gray is Venezuela. The white is Guyana. So this is what they're all actually after. This is what corporate America is after. Corporate America wants control of this oil belt. And according to Maduro, this white part of Guyana is actually part of Venezuela, and everything in this yellow actually belongs to Venezuela. And they've gone to court over it, and the court has actually agreed with Venezuela that this oil belt actually does belong to them. And so that's a big reason why I think a lot of this stuff is actually happening. So there is some disclosure there. There's some disclosure. Now let's look at Plan Colombia real quick. Plan Colombia was a U.S. foreign aid, military, and diplomatic initiative aimed at combating Colombian drug cartels and left-wing insurgent groups. The plan was originally conceived in 1999 by the administrations of Colombian President Andres Pastrana Arango and U.S. President Bill Clinton, and signed into law in the U.S. in 2000. The official objectives of Plan Colombia were to end the Colombian armed conflict by increasing funding and training of Colombian military and paramilitary forces, those are proxy militias, and creating an anti-cocaine strategy to eradicate coca cultivation. Partly as a result of the plan, the FARC lost much of its power against the Colombian government. Sources conflict on its effect limiting cocaine production. However, U.S. reports conclude that cocaine production in Colombia dropped 72% from 2001 to 2012, contradicting UN sources which found no change in cocaine production. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm pretty sure that there's still plenty of coke flowing into the United States, but I am certainly not an expert on that. The original version of the Plan Colombia was officially unveiled by President Andres Pastrana in 1999. Pastrana had first proposed the idea of a possible Marshall Plan for Colombia during a speech at Bogota's Tequendama Hotel on June 8, 1998, nearly a week after the first round of that year's presidential elections. Okay, so anyway, that's interesting. And then here's just Reuters corroborating all this. Colombia's Petro suggests the last vessel bombed by the U.S. was Colombian. Okay. So now let's go to this this article that RT just published, which is a feature. This is a featured article that they just published. And it says the Nobel that wasn't Trump's, because there's all this, like, everyone is the shiny object right now is Trump getting the Nobel Peace Prize. Nobody cares about the Nobel Peace Prize. Like, anyone talk, like, don't waste your time arguing about that. Trump says he doesn't care about it. He should get it, but who cares? Like, who cares? It's a shiny little trophy. It doesn't mean anything. It says the Nobel that wasn't Trump's. Why Oslo chose a Venezuelan rebel over a peacemaker. And for those who don't know what happened, Oslo is where Norway is where the Nobel Peace Prize council is, or whatever. And what they said is they can't, like, because all week people were like, well, Trump obviously needs to get the Nobel Peace Prize. Even the Wall Street or the Washington Post came out and said that Trump should get the Nobel Peace Prize. And they came out and they said, oops, sorry. We actually already picked our person on Monday before, like, all this Hamas peace stuff happened. You know, the day that Trump and Netanyahu were meeting, that was the day we picked our winner for this year's Nobel Peace Prize winner, right? It says the Nobel committee, that was the word I was looking for, reignited a debate over who gets to define peace. So who won? Who won instead of Trump? The 2025 Nobel Peace Prize has gone to, drumroll, Maria Corina Machado, one of the most prominent faces of Venezuela's opposition. The committee's language is familiar, rights, peaceful transition, but the story behind it isn't. Machado's record blends volunteer election networks with long-running fights over foreign funding. Her name has appeared in cases tied to efforts to unseat the government, charges she rejects, and a country remains split over where legitimate politics ends and regime change begins. This is a very based article, by the way, published by RT, because they're calling it exactly like it is. This woman is a CIA cutout. They tell you, by the way, guys, that Venezuela is an authoritarian regime. Maduro is a dictator, yet Maria Corina Machado has been allowed to operate there for the past 22, 23 years as the opposition leader, okay, with Sumate, the NGO she runs that is funded by the National Endowment for Democracy. She's allowed to hold public protests. She's allowed to go on international television. She's allowed to go to the Bush White House and shake George Bush's hand. She's allowed to be a public figure, a public face for the opposition to Maduro, and yet they haven't arrested her and thrown her in prison. They actually did arrest her. They arrested her a couple of years ago. They immediately released her. They arrested her for questioning. They questioned her, and then they released her. That sounds like a ruthless dictator, guys. Ruthless dictator to arrest a woman who is the opposition leader, who has been accused, by the way, multiple times, first by the Hugo Chavez government and then the Maduro government, and several of her cohorts who helped create Sumate. They actually were in 2004 were charged with treason, and like all under the letter of the law in Venezuela, because they were receiving money from the U.S. government and basically were charged with overthrowing the Hugo Chavez government. And they were able to successfully lobby to have a referendum election in 2004, which failed. Chavez won the election. Whether or not elections are real or fake is a secondary question, but you would think that if the elections were being controlled by the CIA, then he would have lost the election, and Maria Corina Machado would be the dictator instead of Maduro. It says, from Steel Dynasty to political underground, Maria Corina Machado is an engineer by training and one of the most recognizable figures in Venezuela's opposition over the past 2 decades. But born in Caracas to a family linked to the industrial group Savinsa, she studied at the Andre Bello Catholic University and later at IESA, Venezuela's leading management school. Early exposure to the family business and an affinity for market-friendly ideas shaped her public profile and emphasis on entrepreneurship, privatization, and integration with global markets. In 2002, Machado co-founded Sumate, there you go, a civic platform that built volunteer networks to train election observers and run parallel vote counts. That is when the first major controversy took hold. Authorities alleged the group received funding from U.S.-based organizations. Her supporters countered that the money supported legitimate civic initiatives. From then on, every move she made in politics was viewed through the lens of where to draw the line on outside assistance. That same year brought Venezuela's most dramatic recent upheaval, the brief ouster of President Hugo Chavez and the Carmona Decree, which proclaimed a provisional government. Machado's name surfaced in debates over who backed the decree. She denied participating. The legal and historical arguments never fully settled, but the episode fixed an image of Machado as a politician whom opponents associate with the idea of regime change. A long stretch of investigations and restrictions followed. Between 2003 and 2005, prosecutors examined alleged illegal foreign funding for NGOs. Travel bans appeared periodically. In 2014, amid street protests, Machado became one of the most prominent voices criticizing the government, and in official rhetoric was linked to cases alleging a plot and even an attempt on President Nicolas Maduro's life. So that was 2014. Because remember, Maduro comes into office in the 2013 election. So 2013 election, Maduro wins, comes into office, I guess, in early 2014. And then all of a sudden you get a color revolution, protests in the streets led by Machado. And then there's an allegation that she is trying to orchestrate an attempt on Nicolas Maduro's life. Machado rejected the accusations as politically motivated. The upshot was a prolonged ban on holding public office. So she was banned from holding public office. Here she is in 2005, I think. Yeah, May 31st, 2005, meeting with George Bush. So George Bush anointing her as the opposition leader, the spicy Latina opposition leader in Venezuela. By the mid-2010s, Machado had consolidated her own political vehicle, Vente Venezuela, Come Venezuela. In public, she argued for deregulation, anti-corruption measures, privatization, and openness to investment, along with a peaceful transition through elections and international monitoring. Critics read this as an effort to normalize external pressure. Supporters said it was the only path back to competitive rules. Her biggest surge came in 2023 when she won opposition primaries by a wide margin. The ban on her running, however, remained in force. Her team faced inspections and arrests. In early 2024, the opposition shifted to a substitute candidate, Edmundo Gonzalez, a career diplomat. Registration was marred by technical snags, and the media argued over whether the campaign conditions were even-handed. When the votes were counted, the incumbent held on. Several foreign governments declined to recognize the result. This is last year. Remember last year, the Biden administration said, well, Nicolas Maduro didn't win that election. It was definitely Maria Corina Machado. She's the one who won. Inside Venezuela, the post-election map barely moved. To some, Machado embodies systemic change. To others, she is a politician whose methods and ties stray beyond acceptable bounds. After the 2024 election, Machado largely disappeared from public events. Her statements came via video with her whereabouts undisclosed. The phrase, quote, underground network took hold in the media shorthand. Supporters saw a movement operating under pressure. Opponents argued it was a continuation of street-level tactics and external lobbying against the authorities. So basically, she disappeared from public, like the optics, right? And everything she's put out over the past year, or since November, the past year, has been optics that's like she's in hiding for her life. The Maduro regime is after me, guys. And so I have to go. I'm on the run for my life. Nicolas Maduro is the head of the cartel, okay? He has access to the most ruthless assassins, a network of the most ruthless assassins in the world, whose home base is basically Colombia/Venezuela, allegedly. And yet this woman is able to run around Venezuela and hide out in the jungle and hide out in the cities from the cartel that Nicolas Maduro ostensibly, allegedly controls. The cartel can't find her. The authorities can't find her but she can put out videos on Facebook and Instagram. Do you understand how retarded this whole thing is? Like, these people are so stupid who run this stuff. You have to be an idiot to like fall for any of this stuff. I'm sorry, but this is just like laugh out loud funny at this point. So it says, opponents argue that it was a continuation of street level tactics and external lobbying against the authorities. Against the bad backdrop, the Nobel Peace Prize elevates Machado's biography to the international stage and carries a long-running national argument over the limits of political struggle to a much wider audience. Why Oslo chose her? This ridiculous poster they put out. In announcing its decision, the Nobel Committee said it was honoring Maria Corina Machado for her tireless work promoting democratic rights for the people of Venezuela and for her struggle to achieve a just and peaceful transition from dictatorship to democracy. The language was familiar, rights, democracy, peaceful transition, but the context was not. Machado's record blends civic mobilization and volunteer networks with long-running controversies over foreign funding. Her name has appeared in cases tied to efforts to unseat the government, allegations she has consistently rejected, and Venezuela remains deeply divided over what counts as legitimate political struggle. Those contradictions make the award particularly charged. Within Venezuela, the same actions that Oslo calls peaceful resistance have been framed by officials as destabilization efforts supported from abroad. For Machado and her allies, the prize validates years of activism under pressure. For the government, it confirms a long-held view that Western institutions reward political opposition disguised as democracy promotion. So remember, these are the guys. This is the lady that like Marco Rubio is promoting her as the Iron Lady. That's what he calls her, the Iron Lady. She's like the super base and red-pilled leader of Venezuela. How are they going to defend? How is Marco Rubio, by the way, going to defend the fact that this woman, who's an NGO funded, she's she runs an NGO, a multi-billion-dollar NGO that overthrows governments. How is Marco Rubio going to defend her getting the Nobel Peace Prize and not President Trump? The optics here are absolutely terrible for the Republican establishment, because the Republican establishment has been boosting this woman for the past 23 years. What a joke. What a joke. Let me check on the chat because I haven't checked on y'all in a while. How's the chat doing? Y'all still alive? Hit the thumbs up. Say what's up. Uh-oh, little Marco. That's right, 626 Suze. And yeah, the Quakening. Thank you. Let's go real quick and just spend 1 minute because we're coming to the end of the show here. I forgot to add the comments back to the screen. The Quakening. Thank you for pointing this out. Where are you at? I'm looking at you. I'm looking for you in the StreamYard chat. Well, I can't find your comments in the StreamYard chat, so I could put it on screen, the Quakening. But the Quakening says, happy anniversary, Badlandia. And that is true. Today was the launch, I believe, October 10th, 2022. 3 years ago was the day that the first show on Badlands ever aired, which was Baseless Conspiracies, starring John Harold and Zach Payne. There's a little bit of breaking history for you. So yeah, happy birthday, Badlands. That's today. And the Real J is asking, the Real J 14, has Loomer commented on this? Yes, you must have just gotten here because Laura Loomer has commented on this, and we covered that. The people of Idaho need to revolt. She's going to lead the populist uprising in Idaho. Sather, you need to get on that, brother. You need to get on this and go contact Loomer. Maybe do an interview with her. She'll be spearheading the event, the effort to undermine and subvert President Trump. Okay. And then somebody just asked, how is that a good thing, Gordon? What are you referencing? What are you referencing? Monty 710 Ghost. How is that a good idea? What I need to know. I need more context. I'm happy to answer the question. I just need to know what the context is. Don't we have a base in Qatar as well? Yes, that's CENTCOM. It's the largest military base in the Middle East. Okay, so we got a few minutes left, so let's hit some Russian stories. Here's Lavrov doing an interview with RT where he says we don't need to spend a lot of time on the story. He just says that the root cause of extremism in the Middle East. Quote, we have repeatedly made it clear to Israel that the unresolved Palestinian issue lingering for nearly 80 years remains the main factor fueling extremism in the Middle East. So that's Lavrov. Lavrov is super based and red-pilled. You also have officials. This is actually kind of funny. India and China are the real culprits in the Ukraine conflict, U.S. official, and this is Scott Bessent. U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has accused India and China of being the real culprits behind the continuation of the Ukraine conflict due to their purchases of Russian oil. In an interview with Fox News on Thursday, Bessent said the administration of U.S. President Donald Trump is trying to resolve a situation that he blamed on the Asian giants. Quote, we were doing a lot on Russia, he said, but the real culprits there have been China and India in terms of buying Russian oil. They're keeping the Russian war machine going. Now, remember, the audience of Fox News are like neocons, right? So he's speaking to neocons. He's stoking the fires of like anti-China, anti-Indian sentiment. And we need to decouple from China and India. What comes from China? Cheap goods and agriculture, right? Those are the two things that China really screws us on when it comes to like our economic relationship. Is they screw us on flooding our markets with cheap goods, but they also like buy up U.S. farmland and they flood the U.S. with cheap agriculture and cheap goods, and that's one of the big things that Trump. That's why they were talking about farm equipment in relation to China earlier with that negotiation in the cabinet meeting, is they were talking about rectifying the situation. So decoupling from China. India, of course, is pharmaceuticals. India is a major provider of like pharmaceutical products, pharmaceutical chemicals. Israel is as well, by the way. Israel and India are very closely aligned, worth noting. But we need to decouple from both of them. And then, of course, you have the H-1B1 visa thing from India. You have there's a lot of like technology, high-tech stuff from India as well. So that is exactly I think Scott Bessent is just, we're drafting off the neoconservative desire for war by pointing the finger. It's not Israel, guys. It's India and China. And the neocons are like, yes, it's India and China. We should definitely decouple from them. Tariffs, good. Tariffs, very good. Economic warfare with India and China, very good. Yes, correct. Definitely correct. Here's Putin. Trump's peacemaking efforts undeniable. The Russian leader has commented on whether the U.S. president deserves a Nobel Prize. The efforts that U.S. President Donald Trump is putting into resolving international conflicts cannot be disputed, Russian President Vladimir Putin said Friday, commenting on whether the American leader deserves a Nobel Peace Prize. Trump has repeatedly stated that he should be given the award, but the Norwegian Nobel Committee snubbed him earlier in the day, instead selecting a Venezuelan opposition politician as this year's recipient. The committee has a record of honoring people who, quote, did nothing for peace, end quote, Putin remarked. Without calling out any specific names, conversely, Trump is really doing a lot to resolve difficult crises, which last for years and decades, he added. The recent mediation in the Middle East, if it leads to Donald achieving all of his goals, everything he said he wants to do would be a historic event, the president added. Love it. Love that Vlad calls him Donald. I think that's just very, very respectful. Very respectful. And then here's just another headline that just popped up that just was published. The IDF is saying the Gaza ceasefire is in effect. The Israeli military has said its troops have withdrawn to the agreed lines within the enclave. It says that Israeli troops have completed their withdrawal to positions agreed under U.S. President Donald Trump's ceasefire deal as of 12 p.m. local time. What is 9 o'clock GMT? We got to figure out what that is real quick, guys. Let's convert it to EST. I need it in EST. It's 5 a.m. So at 5 a.m. this morning, the clock started. Now I think they have 72 hours. But if I'm remembering correctly, they have 72 hours now. Hamas has 72 hours to release all the hostages. I bet you that happens by Sunday. I bet you that happens today. I bet you they send them all home today. Like, get out of here. Okay. All right. Very, very interesting. Afghanistan assures India it will not allow misuse of its territory. New Delhi has praised Kabul's sensitivity towards Indian security concerns. Afghan Foreign Minister Amir Khan Muttaqi has declared that no one will be allowed to use his nation's territory against others, underscoring newly reestablished ties with India. Muttaqi, who is on his first ministerial level visit to India since the Taliban returned to power in August 2021, held talks with Indian Foreign Minister S. Jaishankar in New Delhi on Friday, where the two sides agreed to restore full diplomatic relations. Quote, during the American occupation, there were many ups and downs. We never gave statements against India and always valued good relations with India, Muttaqi said. We will not allow any troops to threaten or use our territory against others. This is a challenge for the region. And Afghanistan is at the forefront. And remember, that right there is the Doha Agreement. That is a Trump doctrine. That is the Trumpian doctrine. Trump said you can have control of Afghanistan back, and we will pull out completely, but you can never allow Afghanistan to be used by foreign proxy groups as a staging ground for terrorist activities into other countries. And if they do arrive, you have to hunt them down and kill them. And so what they're worried about here is they're worried about this. They're worried about okay, here's Afghanistan. Context. Here's Pakistan. Here's India. Here's Afghanistan. So they're worried about, my guess is they're worried about this region up here, the Wakhan National Park, which is technically an Afghanistan territory. This like mountain ridge that runs up here. They probably are thinking that they don't want proxy militias launching out of Afghanistan and into Jammu and Kashmir to stir up trouble. Okay, and Pakistan is totally on board with us. Pakistan loves Donald Trump. They were the first country to nominate him for a Nobel Peace Prize. They obviously signed a security deal with MBS recently. They are super based and red-pilled. We love Pakistan. We love the Taliban. The Tali bros are our guys. We love the Tali bros. We love Kim Jong-un. We love Maduro. We love Putin. We love the Sovereign Alliance. The Sovereign Alliance is based, and they're awesome. And they all are funny. They have great senses of humor. There's a humanity to them, and everyone else that's in the that opposes those people, they all suck. Like, they all have terrible senses of humor. They seem like robots. They are totally unrelatable. They have very sketchy work histories, like weird ties to weird organizations. They're probably in like secret societies that made them do a lot of gay stuff behind closed doors. We just don't like them. Like, sorry, not sorry. We just don't like you very much. Okay. And then we have to hit this story. Well, before we go there, Moldova, Marina Tauber, so she is the leader in Moldova. She's being opposed now by a pro-NATO military doctrine candidate. And she is being like, she's like the populist leader in Moldova, and she's arguing that these other these newer like regime-backed politicians who are trying to implement a NATO, like a European military. They're trying to create a continental army in Europe. They're basically looking to go to war with Russia. So she's blowing the whistle, saying this is happening. Moldova is being used as one of the proxy states that are trying to establish it. It's obviously one of the weaker countries probably in the NATO, I would imagine. So we got to keep an eye on that. We got to keep a big eye on that. But this is the story that, I mean, anytime this story comes up, we are talking about DRC and Congo, because this is our guy right here. Let's take a look at him. Let's zoom in on him right here. That's our guy. Felix Tshisekedi. I can say his name now, guys. Tshisekedi. Okay? Felix. I used to just call him Mr. Felix because I couldn't say his last name, but I figured out how to say his last name. I'm very proud of myself for it, so I like saying his name. Tshisekedi. DR Congo asks Rwanda to end war. Kigali, which is the capital of Rwanda, has dismissed an appeal in Brussels by President Felix Tshisekedi as political theatrics. Democratic Republic of Congo President Felix Tshisekedi has called on Rwandan President Paul Kagame to bring peace as fighting with M23 rebels escalates in eastern Congo. Speaking at the EU's Global Gateway Forum in Brussels on Thursday, the Congolese leader called on his Rwandan counterpart to embrace the path of dialogue. Quote, "It is not too late to do things right," Tshisekedi said. "I'm using this forum to extend my hand to you, Mr. President, so that we can make peace. Today, we are the only two capable of stopping this escalation," he stated, urging Rwanda to press M23 to halt military escalation. Quote, "And this requires that you order the M23 troops supported by your country to stop this escalation, which has caused enough deaths as it is," he added. Kagame did not respond to Tshisekedi's remarks at the forum, while Rwandan Foreign Minister Oliver, I'm never going to be able to say this name, Dehungere, not going to work here anymore, later dismissed the comments as political theatrics. Tshisekedi alone can end the war. That's funny, because last time I checked, M23 was in control of DRC territory. So I don't know how they would be how DRC would be the ones responsible for ending the war when their territory, Goma, Kivu, Bukavu, are all controlled by it. Says clashes between Rwanda's presidential press secretary Stephanie Bayir said on X that Tshisekedi had used the stage in Brussels to cast himself as a peacemaker while, quote, claiming victimhood of the very conflict he caused and has refused to resolve. Clashes between M23 fighters and Congolese governmental forces have escalated in the country's mineral-rich east since January, with the rebels seizing key mining hubs, including Goma, the capital of North Kivu, and Bukavu, the capital of South Kivu, reportedly leaving thousands dead. Congolese officials have long accused Rwanda of backing militant groups in the mineral-rich eastern DR Congo and expropriating resources, the claim Kigali denies. In June, DR Congo signed an agreement with Rwanda, brokered by the U.S. and Qatar. There's Qatar again, aiming to end the decades-old conflict. U.S. President Donald Trump, whose administration mediated the pact, has said the deal, which calls for a joint security mechanism, also grants Washington rights to local mineral wealth. It also pledges a 90-day Rwandan troop withdrawal from the DR Congo and outlines disarmament steps. However, Tshisekedi pointed out last month that the agreement has failed to stop the clashes. It is what it is, guys. It is what it is. And we got to talk about this on Badlands Daily when I went on there with Alpha and Ash on Thursday, but we didn't get to talk about this on this show, so we kind of have to. And we'll hit these really quick because we're over time now. But here is our girl, and I mean that very respectfully, Maria Zakharova, the Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman, saying that new evidence of Ukraine backing terrorism in Africa, talking about Niger and Sudan. Okay, so let's go back to our map one last time. Let's fly out of Afghanistan. We're flying out of Bagram, and we're going to Africa. Here's the DRC. There's Rwanda. Kivu is this whole province right here. You got this massive lake, Lake Victoria. Okay, and then you have Bukavu. This is South Kivu right here. Lake Kivu. And then here's Goma. So Goma is the capital of North Kivu, which is the northern coast of this massive lake. And then Bukavu is the capital of the southern part of this lake. And those are the two places that they send all the raw ore of these rare earth minerals to be refined, and then they're sent off to the marketplace. So they took control of those refineries so that they can steal all the minerals, because the regime lost control of those places. The licenses were taken away by President Donald Trump with Executive Order 13818, December 20th, 2017. So all this stuff is connected. Let's go. And then, of course, we're going to fly out of the DRC. And here's Niger, and here's Sudan. Niger and Sudan are two places where you have a lot of ISIS activity. Sudan, of course, signed the agreement with Russia to build a naval base, which they finalized in January. The day before Trump came into office, they finalized this agreement. They've been negotiating it since 2017. Russia's going to build its first naval base ever at Port Sudan, right across the water from Saudi Arabia. What's up, MBS, Sovereign Alliance? So you're going to have the Russian Navy in the Red Sea. And of course, the Biden State Department lost its mind when this was being finalized last year. And since 2022 has been threatening Sudan that if this happens, you're gonna have problems. And then, of course, spring of 2023, a civil war breaks out in Sudan. Go figure. Niger, of course, has teamed up with Mali and Burkina Faso to create the Alliance of Sahel States. They have a better acronym than that, but that's, technically the acronym. But they have all been under heavy ISIS pressure for years now, because they're breaking away from the regime, the ECOWAS, which is the regional authority that operates out of Lagos in Nigeria and Abidjan in the Ivory Coast. They are trying to bring them back under the control of the globalist regime. And so Niger, Burkina Faso, and Mali are all facing lots and lots of threats. They're all operating under military juntas. And to that point, here is African state uncovers espionage network. Burkina Faso is from 2 days ago. Burkina Faso's government has detained the leaders of an NGO over claims of illicit intelligence gathering. Are we seeing a pattern here? Burkina Faso's government has arrested 8 workers for a Netherlands-based NGO on charges of spying. The operations on the International NGO Safety Organization had already been suspended for allegedly collecting sensitive data without authorization. During a press briefing on Tuesday, Security Minister Mahamadou Sana told reporters that the activities of the organization had been monitored for some time. According to him, thanks to the contribution of citizens, the authorities were able to determine that the NGO constituted an espionage network in Burkina Faso. Sana stated that despite the earlier suspension, quote, some officials continued to carry out clandestine or disguised activities such as gathering information and holding meetings in person or online. Yeah, that sounds to me like an NGO that is a CIA front or a British intelligence front. That would be my guess. You're going to follow the money, and it's going to lead back to either London, MI6, Langley, CIA, or Tel Aviv, Mossad. Because remember, a lot of these gold mines that are in Africa, these rare earth mineral mines, are actually owned by Israeli oligarchs, or were before they were taken away from them. So they're the ones who want their gold back. And then final story here is just from yesterday. Russia and Nigeria boost agricultural ties. Moscow and Abuja have signed a deal to advance crop breeding and seed production. It says Russia and Nigeria have signed an agreement to cooperate on seed production and crop breeding. The two sides confirmed Wednesday during the 27th Golden Autumn Agro-Industrial Exhibition in Moscow. The memorandum of understanding was signed at the West African Collective Stand, which featured representatives from Burkina Faso, Mali, Nigeria, and Togo. Luka Mitz, director of Russia's PP Lukyanenko National Grain Center, and oh my gosh, that name is a nightmare. I apologize, but Director General of Nigeria's Bank of Agriculture were the signatories. Quote, science lies at the core of all development processes, Luka Mitz noted. He emphasized that the partnership was initiated by business leaders who recognized that cooperation would be ineffective without scientific involvement. Now, this builds on a pattern that we have of over the past few years of Russia giving fertilizer and grain to a number of countries. They gave fertilizer, I believe it was, I want to say it was Zimbabwe. They gave fertilizer to Zimbabwe last year, and then Zimbabwe had like a historic year in crop production. They've been selling excess. They have like an excessive wheat. They've been selling that to a number of countries in Africa. So they're helping Africa like get on their feet, and like they want to make sure that the starvation stops, and that the famine stops, and that they can develop an agriculture that actually sustains the people. So with that said, we will maybe we'll focus a little like zero in a little bit more on Africa on Tuesday. Of course, I'm sure there'll be more Middle East stuff to talk about. There always is. All right, so let's see if we got any questions or rants from the chat. Appreciate y'all being here. Keith O'Higgins, $1. If DOD uses HARP for directed energy weapons, the dues, Trump is employing the Golden HARP tariffs, the directed economic weapons. Just make sure your accountant is wearing a blue yarmulke. Funny there, Keith. Appreciate you. Jojo Ellen, $5. AOC is a plant, and then she has a plant emoji. And I would agree. I think she might be a plant. See, she certainly has like the Judas Goat optics. Kiss My Wings, $25. Thank you for this fantastic show, Ghost. When I don't understand what the heck is going on, I know that I can count on you to clearly explain things. Well, I appreciate that, and thank you so much for your generous rant. I don't claim to have the answers. I just want to be clear about that. Like, I am just giving you my interpretation of events as I see them. I may be right. I may be wrong. I don't have any access to any more information than y'all do. Like, I don't know anybody in the government. I don't know anybody with a security clearance. I don't have a security clearance. So I'm just reading tea leaves basically here. But so far, I feel pretty good about where we are. I feel good about the direction everything's going in. So I think we'll just keep on keeping on. But appreciate your support in the comments. Thanks for being here. Babbage3, $5. When you want to find a specific piece of dialogue on a YouTube video, expand the description and click Show Transcript, then Control F to search. Thanks for the show. Babbage, that is a great piece of advice, and you're right. I should have thought about that. And I will remember that next time. Just passing on some very interesting news. Laura Looney Tunes is having a major meltdown as you speak. It is fire. Cindy Waters, $10. Thank you, Cindy. Yeah, Shipwreck and her have been going back and forth. Shipwreck, by the way, I love Shipwreck. Like, she's like my spirit animal. Like, I love the way she just tears these people apart and is unapologetic about it. And it's a lot of fun watching these people just crash out every single day because they're not getting their way. Keith O'Higgins, $1 again. Maybe Columbus landed in Colombia just to get laid like Obama's Secret Service detail did. Yeah, I think that was a story years ago, wasn't it? I don't have the specifics on that, but Newcomer Kimberly, $65, $50. Wow, thank you. That was very generous of you. Your hard work and knowledge is amazing. Much appreciate your hard work. Thank you. Well, thank you, Kimberly. Wow, very, very generous. It says Newcomer Kimberly, so I don't know if you're new to the show or not, but really, really appreciate you and appreciate everyone else for being here. Keith O'Higgins, ASS just got favored nation status, ironically, from Djibouti. Yeah, I think they actually call it. I think the AES is what they call it. It's not ASS, although when it's written out in long form, they write it out as the Alliance of Sahel States. So I told them they needed to work on the acronym, and I think they did. They came back with the AES as opposed to ASS. So I do give them credit for that. Brett Hour, $5. What's up, Brett Hour? Good to see you, man. Good new haircut. Patrick Henry would approve. Yes, I did get a haircut this morning, so it was much needed. I always wait too long to go out and do that, but it's just the way it is. All right, guys, we'll hit the thumbs up. I'm going to check real quick to see if we have any Badlands boosts. If you are listening to this on replay, you can go to badlandsmedia.tv/boosts /boost rather, or just click on the boost panel from the badlandsmedia.tv website. And it looks like we have, nope, that one from Claire Cat was from yesterday. So I appreciate you, Claire Cat, for giving us that last night. Yeah, so thank you guys. I will see y'all on Tuesday. Actually, Monday night, we're going to have Cam back for part 2 of Dennis Rodman. And Monday night, we're going to be talking about the relationship between Dennis Rodman and Kim Jong-un. And this is going to be like one of my favorite episodes of the Book of Trump, one of the episodes that I've really been looking forward to the whole time. So, yes. And I'm going to go ahead and read this special coverage from Kelsey Rank. $10, amazing show. This is from the show we did yesterday with Eric. It says, Eric is an amazing find, and I'm so glad to see the 3 of you together. You guys hit all my major talking points, and I felt good. I felt good to hear it from someone else. I would love to see the show continue. Yes, we are going to continue it in some form. So stand by for more information on that. Rita Settle, same thing, $20 from the special coverage. Thank you, Ash, Ghost, and Eric. I've been praying for the past year to understand exactly what blessing Israel means and why our country supports Israel, even when they are doing things I find to be horrific. Yeah, and my advice is just to don't put your faith in necessarily in the whims of men. Don't put your faith in government for sure. Put your faith in God, and put your faith in your family. And if anything, the largest thing you should put it in is, community. A nation is many, many communities put together, but, your community, whether that's your local community, your expanded family, or, the Badlands community, I think we are all of similar mind. So with that said, we're going to go ahead and get out of here. Thanks again, guys. Please hit the thumbs up. And this has been a fun episode. We'll see y'all next week. Have a good weekend.
Thank you so much for joining us, and don't forget to hit the thumbs up on this video. And a special thank you to all of our advertising partners. Please remember to shift your dollars to support those businesses that support Badlands Media.